Here we are. All right. And we're going live.
Hey.
Hey, we got lots of people waiting to join us. It's 6 o'clock on the dot. So normally when we have these meetups in Sydney, particularly, we sort of everyone arrives at 6 o'clock and then we kind of have a bit of a chat and everything, and then we don't actually start the session until about 20 past 6. But it's very different tonight. We're going to start bang on 6 o'clock, so we are ready to go. Hey Jeff, how's it going?
Very good, Danielle. Yes, going well. It's enjoying my 14 days of isolation after coming back from travel.
that's your isolation where you are. You're at home, yeah?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So where were you? You were in Mauritius.
I was in Mauritius running 2 weeks of training there. So it's a very tough place to go to run a training course. Not.
I know.
I know.
So
Not a bad
jealous.
place. Not a bad place to go.
Can you see me, Danielle?
Yes. Hi, Alex.
Hello. Hi, Jeff.
There you are.
Yes.
There we are. We've got, we pretty much hit the cap already. We've got 100 people online watching us. Yeah.
That was quick.
You're famous, Jeff.
Yeah. This is
I
a
think it's
popular
just
one.
an interesting
I knew this was
topic.
going to be popular. Yeah.
Do you know, Jeff, I finished my 20 days isolation, self-isolation.
I'm only halfway through mine.
He was, Alex was pretty quick off the mark because he went to Hong Kong and then came back and had to do it a few weeks ago. So he's only just out and now everybody's isolated. So
yes.
Yeah, you poor thing, Alex. So I might just hand over to you, Alex, and you can do normally. So you're the convener for CPA Sydney Group. So you normally do kind of a little bit of a stand up and chat to everybody as we get started. So I'll just introduce you to everyone. We've got Alex Chung from CPA. We've got Susan Welcome, who is the administrator. She's going to help us in the background with all the questions. I'm Danielle Stein-Fairhurst, who organises these meetups together with Alex and our speaker, Jeff Robson. So I will hand over to you, Alex.
Yeah, thank you. Well, anyway, welcome to our financial modelling CPA discussion group. Good evening. This is Sydney's time, 6 p.m. Well, we organize once a month this discussion group because Danielle, she organizes many webinars. So this particular is in Sydney. Normally we hold this discussion group in Sydney CPA office. So it's one of her webinars, one of her meeting. Anyway, welcome. The first thing I normally is we need to give some information to CPA Australia. Let anyone you're the first one to join us. Can you just raise your hand? Daniel, do you think you can count them?
Yeah, in the chat, if you could, there's two options in the chat. It's probably over on the right of your screen, and you can either do all panelists and attendees. If you could just say whether it's your first time here, or maybe Susan, you could I should have set that up as a poll actually. Maybe you could do that as a poll if you've got. If you get a chance. We just need to know whether it's your first time joining us or not. I think there's going to be lots of new people. We've got people from all over the world joining us.
Yes. Wow. How many people from the overseas? Do you know that?
I'm not sure, but we'll be able to count those up. Wow, we've got people from all over. Oh my goodness. So we'll be able to count those, and I'll let you know that later, Alex.
Okay, that's great. Anyway, because a lot of people from overseas would like to tell you something about our discussion group. Give me 1 minute. How about that? Okay. I think we start from 2008. Daniel, actually, you are the founder of this core financial modeling Excel meetup, right? It was about in 2018. I invited Danielle into our CPA Australia as one of the discussion group. We are volunteer to invite very good speakers like Jeff. We had a Lance Rubin and share the knowledge and experience with us. We also invite CPA members and also other professional members, especially in finance, if you're analysts or you are the entrepreneurs and directors. So some top 4 accounting firm also our members as well. So so in that case, we basically we start from that up to today is more than a year. So and in today, I think that we expanded more than only just financial modeling. We also involved in some of the marketing and also some the legal issue relating to financial modeling.
Yeah,
so
we've got some sessions coming up on that. Yeah.
Yes, I think Daniel, you're going to talk about that later on too, if you if you can. So in that case, how about that? I'm very quickly to hand it over to you. We can't wait, Jeff, to present to us. So how about that?
Thank you, Alex.
Perfect.
I hope you enjoyed the session. So yeah, there's two. As I mentioned, we've got the chat, which is great, where you can speak to either to us or to everyone. If you do it to everyone, then you can sort of see who's online. And I know it's kind of hard when you're not when you can't see everybody, and we're not. We've set this up as a webinar rather than a meeting for a few reasons. But you'll be able. You guys can actually do private chats to each other. So not that you'll want to miss anything that Jeff's saying, but if you can see other people online, that will not be. That's not part of the recording. You won't be able to see that afterwards. So the real benefit of being online right now is that you'll be able to see each other and see the comments that you're making, and you can also do Q&A. So if you go at the, I think probably at the bottom, there's the chat, and then there's also Q&A. So you'll be able to ask questions of Jeff, and Jeff's going to do his best to see those questions, but it's kind of hard. So I might, or Susan might, or Alex might jump in and ask some of those questions as we go. So as we're going through it, feel free to ask questions. We may not, depending on the number of questions, because we've got such a big group, we may not get through all of them, but we'll be able to get back to you afterwards if Jeff doesn't manage to get to your questions. So two ways of communicating with us, either with the chat, which is to everyone or just to us, or through the Q&A. And actually other people can answer questions on the Q&A as well. So feel free to contribute. This is a discussion group and a virtual meetup. So as much interaction as possible would be great. And if you see a question that you like and you're not sure we're going to get to it, you need to do a thumbs up so other people can upvote it. So if we get lots and lots and lots of questions, you'll be able, we'll go to the ones that are most popular.
Yes.
So I'm going to just introduce Jeff now. Jeff Robson is a founding director and principal business analyst at Access Analytics Solutions in Perth, WA. So he is based in Perth, which is where he's joining us from today. So it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon for you, isn't it?
Exactly.
He's specializes using Microsoft's world-leading Power BI and Excel products to provide financial modeling, data analysis, dashboards, reporting and training. And you're probably one of the other people, few people I know who do just as much exciting travel as I do. You get to go to some amazing places, and both of us are feeling quite frustrated at the moment because our wings are very much clipped. So it's a little bit frustrating. I know, but we have to make do with these virtual sessions for now. So over to you, Jeff. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you very much to you and to Susan and to Alex for organizing everything today. So I really appreciate you getting that all organized. So the plan for today, really, I've got a model which is a very simple financial model, which I've built using the Excel's new and very cool dynamic arrays. So we'll be looking at that. Before I get into that, we'll also look at the dynamic arrays and just briefly look at some of the key functions, because I'm not necessarily using all of those when we build the financial model. And then I've also got an example of how to do some corkscrew calculations, which using dynamic arrays again, which a lot of people have said, can't be done. But like I was saying to Danielle earlier, when people tell me that, it just sounds like a very interesting challenge. So anyway, so I'll show, hopefully we'll get to all of that. And as you said, if you do have questions as we go through, please feel free to ask those. It's a very new area, so I may not necessarily know all of the answers, but we'll certainly do our best to to answer those. And if some other people may know the answer, feel free to jump right in. So without further ado, I'm going to turn off my lovely face here, and we'll jump across to Excel. All right, so let me go into here. All right, so with any luck, people are hopefully seeing my screen. So what I thought I'd do, as I said, is just to briefly introduce dynamic arrays. So I don't know how many people have had a chance to play with them. They're still fairly new. If you don't have the right
we can't see your screen just yet, Jeff.
Can't say that yet. Okay. All right, 1 moment. Love these technical issues. Share screen. All right.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, apologies for that. So as I was saying, they're very new functions, and some people will have them already in Excel, so you can very easily test whether you have access to these by just typing in, equals in your version of Excel, and then just typing in, XLOOKUP. If you have XLOOKUP, you'll have all of the dynamic arrays, or you could type in, equals one of the other ones that are currently listed on the left-hand side there. So that will give you access to those. If you don't have access, you can potentially request to get your IT guys probably to make a change. So if you look at what version you've got, you do need to have the right version. So under file account, this particular machine I've got here is on the Office Insider Edition. You no longer need to have the Office Insider Edition. They are being rolled out progressively to, I think people on the monthly channel will receive it over the next 6 months or thereabouts, and then it'll be rolled out to everyone else. They're not, as far as I'm aware, not coming to Excel 2019, so it's really just something for the Office 365 people. So I guess they're, it's Microsoft, they're trying to encourage everyone to be on Office 365. So anyway, it's probably almost worth getting it just because it is, they are so cool, and you can do some really interesting things with them. Hence our discussion today. All right, so what are we going to talk about? Well, there's a whole series of, looks fairly innocuous, but there's 7 new functions, or 8 if I count the hash and the at. And these allow us to do some really interesting things. So things that previously required us to do, if anyone's used the normal Excel array functions, I know we've got a number of very experienced people on the attendance list already, but the usual arrays we used to have to do, you have to put in the curly brackets or do the Control-Shift-Enter and all that kind of stuff. And this is not, dynamic arrays don't require you to do any of that kind of stuff. So you basically just enter them like a normal function, but the difference, as you'll see, is that they work like an array. And so they automatically expand, and we can do some really cool stuff with those. So what I'll do is I'm just going to use this little table of projects that I've got here. And you'll see I've taken some inspiration from Austin Powers in here, and a few other interesting project names that I've made up along the way. But just to basically use this as a bit of an illustration to do some interesting, hopefully, formulas for you today. All right, so let me go across here. And sorry, I saw Danielle's picture. I thought she was pointing at something. Okay, so what I've got here, first of all, just to illustrate what we can do, what I've done in here is I've created a series of, range names. Let me just go into my name manager, and I've got for instance, a range name here, and you'll see here what I've done is I'm not sure how readable that is, but let me just zoom in a little. All right, so the range name that I've got here, let's scroll up, just says equals dynamic arrays K7, and I've got a hash after it. So what does that mean? Well, if you look at what's in K7 here, in K7, just to zoom back out again, what I've got is there is a formula in here. So K7 has a formula that says sort the unique values from a column in my table. So this is using 2 of the dynamic array functions, the sort function and the unique function. So unique on its own does what you would probably expect it to do, just gives you a list of the unique values. So if I go back over here, give me a unique list of everything that's in that particular column. And now I see there's my 3 unique values. So there's only just those 3 countries. But you'll notice that there's the same formula. Well, there's a formula here. And if I look down here, the formula goes gray when I go to one of these other cells here. So it's actually only entered in one cell. So I could actually type something else in here. And if I do that, it's going to stop my formula from copying itself down. So in Excel terms, spilling down is the term. So this is kind of the general functionality in terms of how these formulas work. And this particular one is doing a sort based on that. There's different ways of sorting. If I go further across just to look at a couple of other examples. Here I've got a combination of 3 dynamic array functions. And so in here I've said to sort the unique values by filtering my project manager column based on whatever country is equal to whatever's been selected up here. So now we can get into some really interesting ways of working with data that's sitting in a table, because we can apply some different filters to that. And so I could change this to Australia, and obviously my list is going to change and so on. So again, this formula has been entered here and it's automatically spilling itself down. So it's automatically copying itself down. So I did that, and then over here I just did a very simple sum ifs. So I just said sum ifs the project cost to date, which is my column over here, where my project manager is equal to M7 spilled down. So I enter the formula once with this spill on the end here, and because this column is spilled, this one then also spills. So some really, really interesting things. So I did a few kind of sum ifs there, just to, those 2 are sum ifs. This one is just simply one minus the other. All right, so just general kind of functionality. I'll just show a couple more here. Here's a slightly more interesting one. So basically I'm saying here to extract some records out of this table here based on some criteria. So I've extracted a subset of records out of there. So sort the table, do a filter based on the project, where my project costs to date are greater than the budget. So again, I can compare one column to another column. It doesn't necessarily just need to be a particular static value or a value that's in a calculated by a formula. And then I've said times by my project manager equals M4. So my cell up here for the project manager. So because I'm multiplying these 2 together, it joins them in an AND criteria. So project cost to date, need to be greater than the budget. And also the manager is equal to this particular person up here. And then this last section over here looks a little bit strange, but basically this is what will show up if it doesn't find any records. So I need to kind of tell it, put a dash, 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 0, 0 is essentially what that last bit there is saying. And then over here, I'm sorting based on column number 6. So that's my sort index. So column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm sorting on my project cost to date. And I'm sorting them by -1, which is in reverse order. So I've got the largest values at the top and the smallest values at the bottom. So a lot of really great functionality in there. I won't spend too much time on this part of it, because I do want to sort of get across to some of the other parts very shortly. But one of the things,
sorry Jeff, there's it's just such a different way of doing things, and we're actually doing one with Chen Du next week sometime, and he'll go more into the not from the financial modeling perspective that you're going to talk about, but more in those formulas.
Yeah, sure. All right.
Yeah, and well, we're just having a lot of questions about the file, and I forgot to mention we will be sending the file out as well.
All right.
For those people who've asked.
We should have mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, there's a couple of other questions, but I'll jump in a little later.
All right, cool. Yeah. So last one I'll just mention here is this one, sequence. So here we can create a sequence of values. You're probably thinking, when would I ever use that? But we're going to start by using that very shortly in our financial model. So this is one example, generate a little table that has 5 rows and 5 columns, start at a value of 10 and increment in steps of 10. So that's a very small table, but I could increase this to 500,000, and it's done. So it processes things like super fast as well with this sort of stuff. So quite impressive, like how fast you can actually, generate a series of values. Anyway, so today we're going to focus on our financial model. So I'm going to use some of the things we've just looked at to essentially create a financial model. So it's a very simple one. I'm not doing a full three-way, balance sheet, P&L, cash flow. We're just going to do a very simple, essentially a P&L or cash flow sort of model. So I've got a few inputs here about some of the things that are going to flow into my model. Down here, I've used Excel's cool, the stocks functionality here. So if you haven't had a play with that, also really cool functionality. So I've got some exchange rates here, which I've marked as being stock data types. And then I've used a function over here that basically just says if the exchange rate is AED, then put a 1. Otherwise, use the stock functionality to get the most recent price out of the, or for that particular exchange rate combination. So I have got in here just to basically give me some different exchange rates. I've put in here a monthly change. So this is allowing me to basically have some different financial exchange rates coming through. So obviously that's not normally how you would model exchange rates, but just for pure examples, okay, we're trying to keep it simple. All right, so down here, I've got a table of some products that we are selling in this particular entity here. So we've got the prices, what currency they're in. We've got an annual volume increase and price increase and a margin on those. Down here, I've got a few different staff members and the salaries that we're paying them and when they are starting and ending. All right, so I'm going to use this stuff that I've got here to create the financial model. As I said, a pretty simple financial model. All right, so first up, over here, I've kind of partially set this up, but what we're going to do is we're going to generate a financial model without copying and pasting any formulas at all. I know, it seems pretty crazy, but yes, we can actually do
say
that.
What?
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Cray. All right, so so first up, what I'm going to do is just basically set up my period numbers. So the normal kind of thing that you would do in a financial model is you would perhaps start by having your period numbers. So one of my inputs was my model term. So this was the number of months. So you can see in here, I'm generating a sequence which starts, has one row, has this many columns. It starts at number 1 and it steps up by 1 each time. All right, so there we go. Just by entering one formula, I now have a sequence of all of my period numbers extending out to period number 61. All right, so what about dates? That's good for period numbers, but what I'd really like to see is, is basically some dates in here. So perhaps what I'll do is let's have another formula here. Let's go equals, use the end of month. One of my other inputs was the start date. And as we go through, I'll kind of explain some of the curious quirks. So these are great formulas, but they do have some quirks and some things to look out for. All right, so here's one of the quirks right off the bat. If I put this, right, it doesn't spill. Okay, sorry, that would also help, wouldn't it? There we go. So I basically said, use the start date, do an end of month off that with this value here spilled, like the end of month formula, if it wasn't working properly, it should copy itself all the way across to the right. However, if you wanted it to do this, you've got to put something on the end of it. So if I put a +0, now it spills. Like, how bizarre is that? All right, what I really want to do here is put a -1 on there so that I get back to the dates that I need. But it's just, these are some of the interesting ways in which these formulas work. So with a lot of formulas, they work perfectly and they spill and they do exactly, they act how you would expect them to act. But then other ones you go, why doesn't this work? And then you do something silly like this and for some reason it works. So one of the other Excel MVPs did give me a very long and detailed explanation about why it works this way when you put something on the end of it and it sees it as an array and one time and doesn't see it as an array with the other time. And anyway, all seemed very complicated. But all right, so that's just one example of some of the interesting quirks. All right, so let's put in a spilled year. Let's put in a spilled month out of here. Let's put in a financial year. What am I trying to do here? This one, spilled, greater than 6, then 8. Spilled. To get my logic right, you guys are all watching me now, aren't you? +1, otherwise G8 spilled. All right, so I can put if formulas in here and I can get these to automatically copy across and make decisions on what needs to happen, all sorts of stuff like that. My financial month, so I could just go in here, I could say same sort of logic. So 10.6, otherwise 6. So for our 30 June year ends, you know, obviously July is going to be number 1 and so on. All right, if we wanted to have a model year, I could just use a, say, a round up function, take my period number spilled and divide that by 12,0. All right, and there's my model year. So I've got 12 ones, and if I scroll across, 12 twos and 3s and 4s. All right, so you can see each of these is spilling all the way across. I might just adjust my number of periods back, actually, to 60, so we can see that working properly. All right, so stopping at period 60. All right, and I'll just do another sequence down here.
Quick question, Jeff. Yes. We just had a question from Ron. He said that he's tried out doing something similar and found that the formatting doesn't apply to the spilled cells.
Yes.
Does that need to be done separately?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure there's a suggestion in Excel user voice to be able to not only copy the formulas themselves across, but also copy the formatting. So yeah, it does kind of mean that we have to basically copy the formatting ourselves manually, which is a little bit annoying. So.
Yeah, and just one other thing, a couple of people have said, I turned off your video because we were trying to make the screen a bit bigger, and yes. Yeah, if you're able to zoom at all, I know it's hard when you're jumping around, we'll just make it a little bit easier for people to see.
Yep, for sure. So, all right, I'll try and
and if you, Neil says if you use the drag control, it increases the screen size at the user viewer end.
Sorry, the drag control.
So no, for the viewers can increase it by using the drag control to increase the screen size.
Okay.
If they're having trouble seeing because I know the formulas are quite small.
Yes. Sorry, apologies for that. All right. Hopefully that's a little better, but see how we go. All right, so I'm just going to illustrate a couple other things in here. So let's, do you want me to leave the video on, or do you see?
It's fine, just leave the video on.
Yep. All right, so you can still see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so I'm going to basically bring in all of my currencies. So for this one, all we do is just go back over here, and I can say bring in all of my exchange rates. And I just go, you'll see here, all I've done is said equals a column in a table, and it's automatically bringing back every value from that column in the table. So I'll do the same for my FX rates, and the same for my monthly change. All right, so there we go. And if I go for the actual rate, so spilled. All right, so what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to spill this one down and also across at the same time. So each of my exchange rates is going to be adjusted by this amount here, essentially multiplied by my period number. Yep. So I'm just going to plus this one spilled times by this one also spilled. So just by putting spill on the end of it, it automatically knows which way to spill it as well. So there's all of my exchange rates. So yes, I know this is not how you model exchange rates, but it gives us some slightly changing exchange rates, so you can kind of see the impact of that. All right, so pretty powerful stuff to be able to enter one formula, and it you could just say spill this one, spill that one. One spills down, one spills across. So I thought it was pretty cool anyway. All right, when I was doing this stuff, half the time I was getting really excited by this and going, oh my God, this is amazing. And then half the time I was getting frustrated by it, going, why doesn't it do this the way I think it should?
I know, the first time I saw your video on this, I was just watching it with my mouth open. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's it's quite amazing. All right, so I'm going to just copy in some of my formulas rather than necessarily typing absolutely everything. So let me just paste these in. All right, that was good. Let me do okay. Yeah, that's not what I wanted to do there. All right, sorry, let me get my product names here first. Demo really, shouldn't I? All right, so I was wanting to put that in here. So my base price.
Neil makes a great point that there are no dollar signs in this whole model, which is fantastic.
That's true as well. Yes, thank you, Neil. Yep, excellent point. So let me get my unit price. What am I doing? My unit price. Sorry. All right, my unit price is from here. All right, and now, yeah. All right, so for my sales units, all right, so there's my number of sales units. That actually should be units, don't tell anyone. All right, so that's my number of base. I change that to the correct one, number of sales units. And I can see this one is increasing as we go across the page as well. So what this is currently doing is basically looking at my annual increase. And what have I done? All right. Okay, let's go down to the next section here. So again, just bringing in the, I'll use an X lookup here. I'll bring in my lookup value from back over here. So I'm looking that up in here and then returning my unit price. And if I spill that down, that will spill down. And let's put that in the right place. So my currencies, if I use XLOOKUP again, currency, sorry, XLOOKUP, this one in this column and bring back that column. All right, and spill that as well. All right, so with my unit price, again, I'm just going to copy this in. And all right, so there's my unit prices now also increasing as we go across the page. All right, so we could also bring in our exchange rates. Grab these. So in here, I've got an index based on my values from further up here. So indexing this, just this single cell spilled, which then references the entire table. So then I'm doing, normal kind of index match. So matching my currency code in my list of currencies, which was further up here, and then extracting the relevant date out of here. Now this looks a little bit strange in terms of what we've got here. We said match G6 spilled in G6 spilled. So the looks a little bit strange to be writing a formula like this. But essentially what we're saying is match the value of G6 in this particular column with G6 being spilled across. So it gives you a match to basically work out which column we need to go to as well. All right, so once we've done that, our formula for our sales becomes quite straightforward. So all of our sales we can bring in, and lost my formatting, but get the idea. So what I've done here is, again, we've picked up this one spilled, multiplied by this one spilled, divided by that one spilled. So again, just one single formula, as Neil said, no dollar signs anywhere to be seen. And we can basically generate our total sales. All right, that's pretty cool. Let me go down to this part. Now, this is the frustrating part. This took me forever to end up figuring out or finding. I really found a solution from somewhere else. I wish I say I've figured this out for myself, but if I'm going to pull in a function, because you would think, right, there would be some easy way of just saying equals the sum of this column and then spill that across. But no, you can't actually do it that way. Like if you write equals the sum of this column here, spilled or something, like it doesn't accept that. If you say, I just want, equals the sum of this cell spilled, like that gives me the sum of everything. So this part here took me just took me forever. Anyway, what I ended up doing was there's a function called mamult, and I had never personally used this function before, but basically it multiplies two functions or two arrays together. And one array here.
Oh my gosh, that's horrid.
I know, isn't that a very intuitive sum function? Not.
Give me the sum any day.
Yeah, I know, this function is terrible. So I hate this function, but this is the only way I've found out, the only way I've found
I'm sure they're working on it.
A sum. It's been requested many times. So I know there's also there's another function that, what's his name? One of the other Excel MVPs has written, so he's written some stuff in VBA that basically does this kind of accumulation sort of stuff. So VBA functions, like custom functions, can also spill, which is an interesting one.
Marcus says, did you get that from Google?
Yes. Well, I got it and then I modified it so it would work with mine, of course.
Love Google.
Of course, we know everything from Google. Yeah, so in here, basically what this is doing is it's saying it's generating a sequence of this many rows, this many columns, a series of ones basically, and then multiplying that by a G52 spilled. So what I end up with is an array of ones coming down here being multiplied by this column. I know, like, who would ever think to do this? I don't know, not me, obviously, but it works, and it does actually give you the sum of those values. 954, so if you can see that. I know.
Yeah, Judy says, can we use, did you try some product? I'm sure you did.
Yes, I tried some product. I tried a lot of different things to try and make this work. I tried index, I tried offset, I tried, everything that I could
Neil
think of.
says use offset first cell to the row above, but that didn't work. There's no shortage of ideas here.
Yeah, I mean, if someone has a better idea and send me the file with the better idea and I'll, give you the credit by all means. But Mamolt, I know, great. Yeah. So hopefully they'll come up with a better way. I'm sure they will at some point.
I'm sure, because it's something that would be so simple. Yeah.
Yes, you would think. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So that's one of the unusual things that we need to do at the moment with. I just want to add up a simple column of numbers. Like, come on, guys. Anyway. All right. So the other examples I've got down here are pretty similar. So I won't necessarily go through those. I'll look at the completed example in just a moment. Actually, let's go across there now, because that was really as far as I wanted to get to in terms of the other ones are just kind of entering formulas. So here's one I prepared earlier, and this one has kind of most of the.
I've been waiting for you to say that.
I know. All right, so here's just as these ones are quite simple. My cogs in native currency, my cogs as a percentage. This was where I used that sequence of ones to basically get this to spill across. So all I wanted was essentially the same percentage just spilled all the way across. So that was what I ended up doing, was just times by that G13, which is just a sequence of ones that don't increment. So did all of that. And then down the bottom here, another wonderful, our favorite function again, Mamolt. Mamolt, it sounds like something Oz would say, doesn't it? Yeah, Mamolt. And
yeah. I gotta get him on.
Man, yeah.
Yeah.
Boom, there it is, man. Go for it. It should be more like Oz, shouldn't we? That was a really easy one.
No, you should be Jeff.
All right, I'll be
Jeff is great.
All right, we'll stick with that.
Stick with Jeff.
All right. So down here we've got the start dates, which is just equals the columns in the table. So they were all very easy to do. Over here, I wanted to get it so that the people would start and end in the right places. So not everyone is starting, at the same time. So I've got some people starting halfway through my financial model. I've got some people finishing halfway through my financial model. So in order to do that, and curiously, the AND function doesn't spill. So I ended up writing a function like this, which I'm sure a lot of us would be familiar with in terms of, you can write is this greater than that or less than this, and just returns a true false. So this will give us a true false, this multiplied by another true false, and then multiplied by whatever the actual salary was and divide by 12. So yes, I know, hard coding, right? Don't kill me. But I'm just being slack. But it gives us a way of, doing an AND function, and you could do this with OR as well, but it does give us a way of kind of simulating what an AND function does, even though the AND function itself doesn't actually spill across. So again, another quirk, some things spill, some things don't. So like I said, I was, half the time I was getting really excited by this, and the other time I was pulling my hair out, which, as you can see, is not a good thing, right? So
it took me a minute there.
Oh, thank you. All right. When we come down here, I wanted to have a way of putting a value right at the very end of my financial model. So if you wanted to do a terminal value calculation or something like that. So I came up with this function. So if you need to put a value right at the very end of your financial model, you could do something like this. So if G6 build equals the max of G6 build, then do something. So that was a way that we could do that. That's a very simple one. I use an XNPV. Obviously, the XNPV function itself doesn't need to spill, but the inputs for that will need to be able to spill across, and they obviously do spill as well, which is cool. And I did an XNPV, and then I did an NPV based on my annual cash flows. So down the bottom here, what I then did was I generated a series of, normally obviously you'd have this on a separate sheet for your, your summary report of your financial model. But down here, just basically generated a sequence again with the number of periods in here being my number of months divided by 12 in one column, starting at my, my start year and then incrementing by 1. So I did that, and then I just used some simple sum ifs to basically pull in my summary for sales and COGS and GP and whatever. So the good thing about this is that we'll come to this in a moment, but because all these things are spilling, I can go back and make adjustments to my inputs and things will automatically calculate. Now, this is where it gets really, really cool. So let's actually go and do that now. And before I do that, what I will do is give myself a little bit more space at the end here. There we go, we do have lots of space. All right, cool. All right, so let's go back over here. And let's say we've done this beautiful financial model for a client, or we've done it for, for our boss or whatever, and they come back and go, oh, let's 60 months, I think we should really make it go for, an extra year. We come back and we just go, yep, not a problem. I will just add another 12 months onto my number of periods in my model, and I press enter. And when I come back over here, what I find is my model now extends out to month number 72. And not just my sequence, but every single formula has automatically been extended out by another 12 months. So when I saw this, I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So that has all been extended. And if I come back to the left-hand side, I've now added an extra year onto my summary table as well. So everything is automatically extending itself. My NPV calculation automatically extended itself. Everything is basically automatically expanding to take into account that new data and those new calculations. So this is, I think, one of the coolest things about these new functions is, one of the very cool things obviously is the fact that you just enter one single formula and then it, automatically copies itself across. And people can't come in here and just, make changes halfway through. And if they try and do something, then it kills the whole model. So that's one good thing, is we've got consistency of formulas, which has, always been such a huge issue for financial models. But the other thing is, as I say, we can just make changes to our financial model and the formulas will automatically copy themselves now. So we don't have to remember to come in here and make changes and, I've got to remember to copy and paste. So those two things, I think, are part of the key reasons why I was saying that I really think these dynamic arrays are going to revolutionize how we do financial models. So they are absolutely amazing. So not only that, but if I go back to my setup page here, for example, I could add another product in here or another staff member in here. So let's add in here Financial Modeling for Dummies. What a great book, I must say. More people should buy that book. So that should definitely be on the list. I don't know what is.
Thanks, Jeff. I'll pay you later.
Thank you. I just thought I'd chuck that in. I don't know. Let's probably selling truckloads of these by now. Everyone should buy a copy.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the price? It's a bargain, isn't it, Danielle? What is the price?
Absolutely, it is absolutely. You just cannot put a price on it.
All right, let's just say like it should be $100, but normally we sell it for less than
about $40, I think.
All right, that'll do. All right, this is in Australian dollars. Volume is just going nuts, so it's probably like 10% increase every month at least, and getting now because the price is going to be going up 20% per year. Profit margin, I'm sure Danielle doesn't make that much out of it. I don't know, but let's put it. I don't know. Let's just put a number in here. All right, so I put all of that in there, and when I go back to my financial model, I can now see there's my financial modeling for dummies now appearing in each of these sections because I just spilled that down. So financial modeling for dummies is now in all of those sections. The formulas have copied themselves down, all of my calculations have automatically copied themselves down, and my total now includes financial modeling for dummies as well. So again, like all I've done is just add it into the table, and because all of my formulas are pointing at that table and spilling from that table, everything automatically copies itself. Like, just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So there's my costs and my gross profit, which now includes financial modeling for dummies. There you go, Danielle. You didn't realize how much money you were making from financial modeling for dummies.
I wish. Here you go.
All right, and we could do the same with our staff as well. We could add someone in here and would automatically copy them into here. So it really is quite a game changer when it comes to these.
Gillian says that's amazing.
It is amazing. I know, it is amazing. All right. So that's pretty much all I was going to show on this. Like, I will make this model available. If you don't have the right,
amazing.
I know, it is amazing. If you don't have the right version though, like when you open this file in an earlier version of Excel, it's just going to come up with hash name everywhere. So try and like beg, borrow, or steal a laptop that has, you know, an up-to-date version of Excel, Office 365, so you can actually have a play with this. But or you can set it up on a virtual machine. Perhaps that's another option if your IT guys won't allow you to install it or something. But it really is something to have a look at and to have a play with, because it is just amazing. So that's all I was going to do on this one. Do we still have any time for a little bit more, or how are we going?
Yeah, because we've had a question about the corkscrew. I think people are really hanging out for that one.
All right, let me go to corkscrew just really quickly on here. I know we are running out of time. So this is just an example. I haven't built an entire financial model using corkscrews yet, but I've kind of just wanted to prove the concept. So in this example here, just ignore this stuff at the top here for the moment. We'll come back to that in a second. But what I've got here is just in my example number one. Sorry, let me make that a little larger as well so we can all read it. Is that better? Okay, with my example number one here, what we've got is we've got an opening balance. It's just been hard coded in there, as if it was being entered. And then what I've got is essentially I've got. Well, let me go to the additions and subtractions first up. So in here, all I've got is just a randomly generated array. So if my period number is 0, then put 0, otherwise generate some random numbers between 100 and 500. So that generates this whole series of random arrays, random numbers, just to basically give me some additions and subtractions. So those two formulas are exactly the same. Then what I've got up here is I've essentially said to generate my opening balance here, I've got my closing balance, which is coming from over here, plus, and then I'm basically just doing two sum ifs. So what my first sum if is doing is basically saying is my, what am I saying? I'm saying a sum if on my additions where my period number is less than or equal to the period number minus 1. So that gives me basically everything. So if I'm here, for example, I'm just adding up those two cells. So in that formula there, I'm adding up those essentially those cells and adding it onto my closing balance. So it's not, I guess, it's not working like a true corkscrew does, where it the balance here equals the balance there, and you kind of have this formula equaled, or this cell equal to that cell. But it is working in the same way by adding up all the movements since the opening balance is essentially what it's doing. Hopefully I'm making sense here. So that gives me the opening balance. I'm sure there'll be some questions on this. And then the closing balance then works in a very similar way, but instead of just having -1 on the end, it doesn't have the -1. So my closing balance is adding up this value here plus all of the movements up until this basically the same period. So here I'm basically saying 500 plus these two values here. So that gives me my 790, and then the 790 here is generated by going 500 plus all of those cells. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
that's good.
All right. So that's how we can.
You're right. It is possible.
It is possible. It's kind of cheating a little bit, I feel, but you know.
Yeah, I find it's a bit hard. Might be a bit hard to audit.
A bit awkward. Yeah, that is one potential disadvantage, I think, of these maybe. But some people have said no. Some people say, oh, I reckon this would be easier to audit because like you've just got one function to look at. So,
I know what you mean. It's just, but it's harder. Maybe not. Maybe it's easier to audit, but it might be harder to follow.
Yeah, it's not as intuitive. I agree. Because if someone came in here and they go, well, where does that number come from?
But only because we're not used to it. Only because we're not used to dynamic arrays yet. Once we get used to it, we'll find it a lot easier.
Probably. All right. And then my very last example was what I wanted to do down here was I wanted to have a mix of actual and budget and be able to swap between them because sometimes when I do a financial model, I'll have, you'll have a series of actual numbers here. And, you want to basically, well, if we're using actuals, I want to show as the closing balance, the closing balance should be the actual numbers. I don't want to have my forecast numbers in here. And then once we switch over from actual into budget or forecast or whatever, then it should take that balance, bring it up to here, and then start forecasting from there. So that was my second example. And what I ended up doing here was slightly more complicated, but some really cool formulas, which I'll show you in just a second. So before I get to that, what I've got at the top here is a couple of tables. So here's my actual closing balance from period 0 through to 6. Here is my my actual balances. And then what I'm doing is just calculating the movement here. So using a little offset. So if the period is 0, it just gives you the balance, otherwise the balance minus the cell above effectively. And that gives me all of the movements. Then down here, I've got my budget numbers, again in another table. So I've got my period number, the additions and subtractions. So obviously if this was a proper financial model, you might have, which account this relates to or what it is that you're actually modeling. So all these numbers here would relate to accounts receivable or accounts payable, or whatever. Okay, so very simplified example here, but essentially it's working in much the same way. So the first example here is, I've just said transpose the balance column of the table. Again, you'll notice the absence of curly brackets. So because transpose is an array function, the balance is an array, so it just takes all of those balances from my actuals table and just transposes all of those from being in
Control Shift Enter, no.
Yeah, none of that. So it just goes from being in a column to now being in a row. So that was, I thought, pretty cool. And the other one down here is slightly more, well, again, very similar formula to what we had before. So again, just my opening balance plus all of the movements up until, well, if I'm let's say I'm here. So it's my opening balance plus all of the movements up until the column beforehand. So that's for this column here. So the cool bits are these bits here, this one in particular. Okay, so what am I doing here? Well, I've just said here, if my period number is 0, then put a 0. Otherwise, basically, if my, say my period number, should really refer to that period number, but anyway, same period, same numbers, is less than my B5. So B5 is my actuals. So if I'm in my actuals column, basically is what this is saying, then transpose all of my actual balance and the movements of those. So go to the actuals table and give me the transposed movement values. Otherwise, give me the transposed additions values from the budget table. All right, so you would think, how does that work? Well, essentially what it does is it transposes all of the actuals up to that point, and then it figures out that I'm in period 7, so then it transposes everything from period 7 onwards from my budget table into here. So it doesn't transpose, it doesn't go back, it realizes, I'm already in period 7, so I will just transpose the budget table from period 7 onwards out to, whatever, 16, I think it was in here. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, that is really clever, because I've got just essentially 2 transposers written in here. One just transposes everything that's in this column here. So 1 through to 6. The other one transposes everything from period 7 through to 16, but I haven't told it, you know, to start in a particular period number or anything. It just knows what to do, like automatically. All right, I was excited by that anyway.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. Yeah.
All right, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then my subtractions, if it's an actual, I just put 0. Otherwise, transpose the budget subtractions. But that is a way that we can do corkscrew calculations. There you go.
Fantastic, thank you.
Cool. All right, so
was there anything else to cover? We've got a couple of questions.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, yep. So the first one was from Michael saying the best approach for financial modelling, given that there are a host of programs that now allow financial modelling within the program, like Futurely. I don't know what that is. Most of my colleagues prefer using Excel. I think that we can all agree that Excel is what we use. Yeah. Do you have any other tools that you use, Jeff?
Given the name of the group.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's financial modeling. It could be anything. Yeah.
All right. Okay, fine.
But yes, Excel.
Yeah.
Do you have any other tools that you use besides Excel, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, we mostly use Excel. We do use Invest for Excel for some simpler kinds of models sometimes. I know a number of people here also use Modano for modeling.
Still Excel, but yeah.
Still Excel,
building.
That's true.
Yeah,
yes.
Yep,
yeah,
cool.
They're all kind of Excel-based.
Neil Blackwood mentioned that he's written a couple of articles for the CPA magazine, which I
cool.
I failed to mention that. So thank you, Neil, for letting us know that.
Yes.
Maybe we can create we can send out some links to those articles. That would be useful. We'll send those out to everybody.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Cool. Yep.
And
if anyone has better ways of doing some of these things, by all means, you know, let us all know, because we're all, you know, it's still very new for all of us. And if there are better ways of doing things, I'm not necessarily saying that these are all the best ways of doing things either. So there may well be some better ways that people have found.
Oh, Neil says there are upcoming articles, May to July. So be sure to subscribe to In the Black from CPA, and you'll be able to read those articles from Neil Blackwood.
Cool. Thanks, Neil.
Yeah, lots and lots of, very cool. This is amazing. This is literally awesome, people are saying. This is great. And the Excel version is Excel 365. Judy wants to know, are there any sessions for BI reporting, Jeff? You got anything coming up?
We haven't scheduled one at the moment, but we will probably be scheduling some of those. Win Hopkins does a lot of sort of online videos and webinars and things like that as well. So yeah, we could, we're looking at sort of turning those into, we're actually looking at, well, we will be announcing very shortly all of our training courses will be delivered online. So for
so you're taking everything online?
Yeah.
Are you finding that people are keen to do that, or are they wanting to hold off? We sort of find some people are wanting to hold off until they can do face-to-face.
Yeah,
but
it's a mix, because some people need it and they don't want to wait. So some people have said,
online is what we have right now. Yeah.
So yeah, we're moving it to a live kind of instructor-led online courses. So they will be announced in the next couple of days.
Yeah, great. And one more question. Roderick says the pictures are clearly awesome, but they need Excel 365. Yes. How long do you think it will take for clients to upgrade? I think most people who've got 365 have got them now. It's just like, how long does it take for everybody to be on 365? What's your opinion, Jeff?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily everyone, because a lot of big corporates, if they're on whatever the slowest channel is, I can't remember what that's called, but like they won't actually have this stuff for quite some time yet. So like,
even if they're on 365.
Yeah, even if they're on 365. If you're on the slow channel, where
how can you tell which channel you're on?
Just under file account.
Yeah.
So if you come in here, you can tell in here I'm on the Office Insider account, so you get all the
Insider
stuff.
You get them quicker than everyone else, but
if you're on the monthly channel, you will get you'll get all of these. And if you're on, I think for my main computer is on semi-annual, and I don't actually have it in there yet. So I think that will be there by about June, July, somewhere around there, I understand.
Government, Clive says government departments take a really long time. Yeah. Yeah,
and as I say, and all those large corporates as well, all their IT guys will, put everyone on the slowest one because that has the least problems. So
yeah, exactly. Judy says using Excel Professional 16, can she install 365 without uninstalling 2016? I think you'd have to uninstall and reinstall, wouldn't you?
I would think you probably would need to uninstall, but I don't know. That's maybe a question for your IT support.
Yep.
Perhaps,
and just another one, again from Roderick, saying in another video, you mentioned that these new formulas obscure formula traceability and model auditability. Could you elaborate and provide an opinion on whether these limitations are significant enough to compromise audit processes for financial deals? What do you think about that, about the auditing traceability?
I mean, it's kind of what we were talking about just before when, like you were saying though, once you get used to them, I think they will make a lot more sense. But for someone who has been used to clicking on a cell and going F2 and going, where does that number come from? Like you can't even press F2 on that number to see what, where it comes from. You've got to go back to that spilled source.
We're so used to the old F2, aren't we?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, maybe it is more of a mindset because, as I said, like I've had other people say to me, look, I reckon this makes it easier because you no longer have any risk there of someone coming in here and going, oh, I just want to add, plus 1,000 on the end of that formula for whatever reason. As soon as someone tries to change it, like it kills everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So so there are certainly pluses and minuses, but I guess that was really what I was referring to in answer to the question, was that it is a little bit different, and it's, if you're used to being able to click on a cell and press F2 and figure out where that comes from, you can't really do that anymore. So you've got to go back to the source here and go, okay, how does that number get calculated, and understand the whole formula in terms of how it's calculating everything on that, every single thing on that line.
Yep, great. Louise wants to know how many people we've got online. We pretty much had a full house right the way through, so we've had 100 people. So I've had a few messages and people haven't been able to get on, so I'm sorry about that. It's a pretty popular one. Ron was a little bit on the ball. There was another video that you did, the one that I saw originally, and said that some of the formulas differ slightly. I think you've improved this one just a little bit since you did that first video. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, so there will be some slight differences, but most of them will be
the
very
same
similar.
Sort of structure. And you'll send the completed version out to us so we can get into it and see how you did it all.
Sure.
Yep. So he says that the formulas presented here are the recommended solution. Yep.
Wow, it's my recommended solution. Like I said, if someone has a better solution, I'm all ears.
Absolutely. There's always, half a dozen ways of doing exactly the same thing. And that's the wonderful thing about financial modeling. There's just so many different ways of doing something very similar, but, people will approach it in a very different way. So, and that's where the skill of the modeler comes into it, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Neil says, could we mention the @ symbol popping in? The fact that you have to do the @
that's true. So a lot of people will see in their current versions of Excel, if they do have the new versions, if you have these arrays enabled, what you'll see is a lot of your formulas will start now showing up with things like this, basically,
like they did with the tables.
So similar kind of thing. So you'll see your index formulas, for example, might have an @ sign in front of them, whereas they didn't used to before, and you'll be going, oh, I didn't put that there, how did that get there? So this is what Neil's referring to. And so really this is a way that you can essentially, if you go equals @ you can kind of get basically you can get access to just one part of an array. So if I go back up here, so in here, so I can go into here and get part of so it'll give me essentially like the intersection of these arrays, basically, is what this is going to do. So yeah, but you will see it popping up in your formulas as well from time to time. So it doesn't mean someone's gone in and changed them. It just means this is when you see the @ symbol in front of your formulas, means you now have access to this new functionality.
Yeah, David says, Jeff, you use MPV in the table, but have you been able to use XMPV in the same way in a table?
So you're talking about, sorry, this one over here. So yes, I didn't actually mention this part over here, but what I did over here was essentially like a little sensitivity table, but it's all running live, and we haven't used
without using a data table.
Without using a data table, exactly. So yeah, there will be, I didn't try it with an XNPV, but there will be no reason, as far as I'm aware, why you couldn't do this with an XNPV. I did use an XNPV back over here, which was this one here. So that's got some spilling happening and so on. So yeah, without putting it into there, I think it should work the same way. Yep. But all good questions though. Thank you very much, guys. Do we have any other questions? Or?
No, I think that's it. So we will, right. I think we'll finish off there. Cool. Thank you so much, Jeff. That was fantastic. We are going to send out a link to the recording to everyone who registered, whether or not, I don't know who attended and who didn't, but you'll get a link to the recording, as well as any other comments and things that that Jeff would like to add to that. We'll send that out to you. Yep. Yeah, and we've actually got, we had quite a few meetups that were scheduled around this time, because I had some trips to Brisbane and Melbourne coming up, so I had scheduled them, but we're going to go ahead with them anyway as virtual meetups. So the next one's actually in 2 days' time, so it's on Wednesday night. Right. So the next one is same time, 6 o'clock on the 1st, and it's with Rondalyn Korolak about how to create more value with your financial model. So she is a pricing specialist and about creating value. So kind of less technical session, but nonetheless, really looking forward to that. Yeah, so thank you so much, Jeff. Did you want to say anything, Alex?
Well, again, it's just amazing. I enjoyed so much. I was actually into the session. So thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you, Danielle, organizing all this. I don't have much to say. And I just want to say one thing. When I was in the corporate 3 years ago, I heard quite a few CFOs said that Excel is dying. After working with you, Danielle, I found it's different. It just opened my eyes.
Yeah. Excel is definitely not dying.
Yeah. No.
Agree.
There's still a lot of development going into it, and
they're really investing in it.
Yeah, this is really taking it forward in leaps and bounds, this kind of stuff, and and there's obviously a lot more yet to come as well. So yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Yes, thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Alex.
Right.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, see you next time.
All right, thank you. See you then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.